Are you ready for an extreme makeover of the mind? With the producer and host of A Better You podcast, the transformational coach whose assignment is to challenge people to change, grow, and evolve into the individuals they were created to be. Here is Dr. Anthony McFarland, providing you with practical tools and wisdom for everyday life challenges for you to win in life, relationships, and finances.
Hey guys, I'm Coach Anthony McFarland. Welcome to A Better You podcast. I'm excited to be with you again this week, as I am always. Why? Because I love to see people win. My assignment is to challenge people to grow, change, and evolve into the best individual that God has created them to be. And in today's episode, I want to talk about toxic people. You've probably heard the word toxic used to describe people due to their actions and behaviors. And I'm sure you've heard the term, wow, that's a toxic relationship. But do you really know what it actually means? Oftentimes we don't really know what it means. We use words or maybe popular to identify people, personality traits, personality disorders, but we really don't know what it actually means. And that's what we're going to dive into today because, I've been coaching people, counseling people for over 25 years, as well as doing leadership training. And I've really seen it all, just like you in some respects. We see people in relationships in every aspect of life, family, television, reality TV shows, and even in the workplace who are just, they're really unhealthy. And the reality is a person with toxic traits oftentimes behave in a way that's very harmful and damaging to those around them. And that's due to their actions, their words and energy, might affect others in a very negative way, whether they realize it or not. And here's the deal. Most people who are unhealthy, they don't see that they're unhealthy, or they're in denial to the fact that they are unhealthy when it comes to their interaction with other people. And oftentimes it's based on triggers, and triggers are a result of past experiences that we've all had, past traumatic experiences in our former years, in our childhood, in our relationships that shape and form and morph us into the people that we are today. And unless we're really open to hearing someone that we know loves us say, hey, you're not healthy, your way of communication when you get angry is vicious and hurtful and harmful, then nothing will ever change. And in some respects, you can tell a person, hey, you know what, you're unhealthy, man. That was not the way to handle that. That was not God, right? And because they're so steeped in it, they can't see their destructive behavior, their traits and tendencies that are very harmful to those that not just that they love, but individuals that they do life with, that they work with. And so at some point in your life, you're going to encounter a person with these type of traits. And again, maybe it's not a family member, maybe it's a coworker, a significant other, a spouse, someone you've been dating for a period of time. And lo and behold, a year later, sometimes even 2 years later, because people do a good job of covering things up, you start to see these traits and tendencies. You'd be like, wow, where did that come from? One of the things that I believe, the closer your relationship is with a person who is toxic, the harder it can be to identify just how unhealthy their behavior and actions really are. Why? Because you've grown to have a love and affection for them. And if it's an intimate relationship, your emotions are so wrapped up into it, and you're trying to accept them and show them that you love them, that you've actually become an unhealthy individual yourself. And oftentimes, toxic people love to have people around them who will not challenge them, not just to change, but to see themselves and to see that the behavior that they're displaying, their way and style of communication is simply unhealthy. And so, what are we talking about today? How to identify toxic people and behaviors and traits and tendencies that hurt, harm, and endanger others, and probably to bring it closer to home, us, individuals like yourself. And so, again, let's look at what the cause of toxic behavior is. Well, I'm going to tell you there are many factors that can cause toxic behavior. There's these two dynamics called nurture and nature. I call it DNA, nature, nurture. So the dynamics of the two sides of that coin is when you think about nature, the so-called what psychologists call the dark triad of personality. It refers to the three categories of humans' worst traits and tendencies, which are the three worst, the dark triad. The three are narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopath. Yes, psychopath. So some people exhibit these type of behaviors. It's only a few. And that's why you have to be careful in putting the title of narcissist on, some people who are just maybe displaying some of those traits and tendencies, but not totally, or Machiavellism or a psychopath in essence. There's a difference, but those three are really like the worst because there's a nature for them that they've developed to be that way. And so research suggests that these negative traits are at least partially genetic, passed from one parent to a child. I call it generational curses. I evolved that teaching from understanding generational curses to understanding generational traits and tendencies. Why? Because everything produces after its own kind. You've heard the saying, fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. And so oftentimes the very thing that you hate in your parents, you disliked in your parents or your loved ones, you become that same thing. You become the epitome of what you hate. And I'm going to share something with you. Oftentimes, we're not conscious that we have picked up the traits and tendencies of our parents, the things that we don't like, and we're actually protruding that. We're displaying that. We're leading that in our relationships. And so other studies, trusted sources, have shown that personality traits overall are moderately inheritable. These type of personality traits overall are moderately inheritable. So people with parents who have toxic traits may be more likely to have those characteristics too. And so I call it kind of like a part of the DNA, a nurtured DNA. But then there's this nurtured personality. I don't want to say disorders, but issues. So it's not just, what am I saying? It's not just that your genes that contribute to the personality issues. There are environmental factors that can play a role too. So in other words, based on the city, the block you grew up in, you come from an inner city, experience a ghetto life, right? Hard knocks life, right? Well, oftentimes, a lot of kids, a lot of youth, a lot of people will get ingrained in that environment. It's kind of like I use this analogy oftentimes, and I'm sure you've heard this. If you hang around a Jamaican for one day, the following day or before that day is over, you'll be saying, yeah, man. And you'll start to kind of talk like that individual. Why? Because you've been connected to them, and whatever you connected to, it causes transfer. And that transfer, good, bad, or indifferent, you will display whatever that transfer is. That's why you have to watch out who you're connected to. Be conscious of who you're connected to. So when you look at your circle, and if there's 6 eggs in your circle and 4 of them are bad, guess what? It's a great possibility that you're the 6th one or the 5th one. So when you start to think about nurtured, overprotected, pampered, or praised excessively in your childhood can be associated with more narcissistic personality traits and this feeling of entitlement. And that's what we are seeing take place right before our eyes with this generation today. There's this spirit of entitlement. Nobody wants to work hard. Nobody wants to earn their way. Are you following what I'm saying? People will just quit their jobs. There's just this spirit of entitlement. Give me, give me, give me. I got to have it, but I don't want to work for it. I don't want to earn it. On the other hand, some people hear this with toxic traits may behave poorly because of past trauma, a dysfunctional family life, or substance use. Notice I didn't say abuse, because substance can alter not just your mood, but your personality. So a person's inability to process stress and grief can sometimes transform into toxicity towards others. Why? They have not been taught coping skills. Most people have not been taught basic life skills. And that's why they have a tough time in life just by themselves, let alone doing life with others. When they're all by themselves, they have a tough time. It's tough for them day to day to function and to maneuver and to fulfill their purpose. Why? Because there's a war going on the inside. To bring it a little bit closer to home, to make it clear to you, a toxic person is anyone whose behavior adds negativity and extreme stress or chaos to your life. Many times, people who are toxic are dealing with their own stresses and traumas. It's really not even about you. You just get the brunt of it. I get the brunt of it. Your family gets the brunt of it. People in the workplace get the brunt of it. People in church get the brunt of people who have not confronted their past hurts and pains and gotten the help, the counsel, the therapy that they need so that they can become a better them, right? And so to do this, what happens oftentimes, they act in ways that don't present them in the best light. And usually, upsets others along the way, again, in every aspect of their life. So it's not just within their family construct, it's in their personal, intimate relationships, could be in their marriage, as well as in the workplace. So let's look at some signs of toxic behavior. And I really believe that this is going to help you to first identify what toxic behaviors are, which can be a little bit tricky, but ultimately, people that behave in toxic ways are often skilled at hiding their destructive behavior until they're really already in a committed relationship, a long-term relationship with that individual, and then it comes out. Again, it's not just in personal relationships. It could be in a work relationship, friends, or a significant other. So over time, what happens is their toxic qualities become more clear. But there are some telltale signs you can be on the lookout for early in a relationship, friendship, potential business partnership. I counsel couples for over 26 years or so. And I always tell people when that relationship comes to an end, and unfortunately, when some people get divorces, you saw the signs early on. You just chose to ignore it. Yeah, you just chose to ignore it. You saw it. You also kind of play this game with yourself. Well, I'm not perfect either. And so, who am I to judge somebody else? I'm going to give them a chance. Well, what we oftentimes are not aware of, or we have not come into the knowledge of, is the importance of knowing not only who you are, how you're wired, your triggers, and how to deal with your triggers, but boundaries are so important. So if you really have a sound, solid set of boundaries, boundaries are not for other people, boundaries are for you. Boundaries are for me, so that when people come to our house, when people walk through the gates of our property into our lives, the signs are there. Beware of this. We don't do this. I don't do this. My mother used to be like famous for saying, I don't do drama. So if you want to do drama, I'm not that person. So again, a person with toxic traits may be very judgmental. To another extreme, can be very needy, mean-spirited. How many of us know some people who are very mean-spirited? Dishonest, denialist. And there's a difference from being in denial and actually being a denialist. See, a denialist will deny truth if it's right there in front of them. And that's how some of you get frustrated with other people who are putting up with people who are toxic, because you're saying, can't you see that this person is unhealthy? This is not a good fit for you. This person is not a good match for you, but they've become denialists. And then you have, again, we're talking about traits of a toxic individual. You have narcissism, narcissistic behaviors. Now, what are some of the symptoms of a narcissistic personality? And in psychology, they call it a narcissistic personality disorder. Well, there's a sense of self-importance, preoccupation with power, intoxicated with themselves, their beauty, or sometimes their success. They become defined by their success and what they've achieved, their scholastic achievements. And so they just get puffed up behind it. And so there becomes this exaggerated sense of self-importance. Again, these are the traits of a narcissist. That individual feels superior to others and that they're the only one that deserves special treatment. There's oftentimes feelings are oftentimes accompanied by fantasies, grandioso ideas about who they are, fantasies of unlimited success, their brilliance, their power, their beauty, how special they are. And, you ain't gonna never meet somebody like me, because nobody can touch me. Okay. You're in fantasy land because you're none of those things, right? But again, when we deal with individuals who are toxic, again, there's this spirit of entitlement. There's this mindset, this spirit that you can only be around people who are important or special, and you look down on other people. There's this interpersonally exploitative view of themselves, right? And they don't even see that they're exploiting themselves with themselves. Why? Because there's this superficial and exploitative approach to relationships. What do I mean by that? Relationships are based on surface attributes and not on the unique qualities of the other people that God has placed in their lives. And so that individual gets to this place where people are only valued only to the extent they are viewed as beneficial for them. In other words, they will throw you away in a heartbeat. And so there comes this spirit of arrogance, and then they lack empathy. And, a lot of times they must be the admired one. I'll never forget, I was sitting and talking with a gentleman, and he said to me, most of the rooms that I go in, I'm the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'm the sharpest person. He actually said, I'm the smartest person in the room. And I wanted to laugh. And I asked him, I said, really? You're really the smartest person in the room? Well, that one tells me a lot about you. Two, you're not in the right rooms, Because if you're the sharpest knife in the drawer, the smartest person in the room, listen to me, you're getting off on that. You enjoy being the smartest person in the room. See, a person who is a narcissist won't even understand that because everything's about them. They have to be the all great, mighty one, the grand, mighty poopah. You know, people like that, man, they want you to toot their horns when you're around them. So, you know, those individuals are intoxicated with themselves. Ultimately, hear me. Ultimately, when you deal with toxic people, there is constant criticism and belittlement, which can erode your self-confidence, making you feel worthless, anxious. You like start to live in this zone of anxiety, and then you're constantly battling depression when you're around them or when you come from around them. They don't take you up a notch. They don't cause any balance. They take you down. They strip you. They're takers, and they have to bring you down to lift themselves up. So they'll talk any kind of way to you. They won't respect you. They won't value you. Now, here's a big trait to be conscious of. Most toxic people, please hear this, toxic people isolate their victims from friends and family. And so what it does, it inadvertently worsens your feelings. You start to really entertain and embrace this loneliness, and it causes the victim to socially withdraw from the people that they really need to be connected with, the groups they really need to be connected with, friends that you know have your best interest. You've now gotten in this relationship, whether it's an intimate or business or friendship, and this person has subtly taken you away from everybody else that's important to you, that has meant something to you in your life. And so when you think about the workplace, for example, there are 4 types of toxic people commonly found in the workplace. And so you're going to experience in the workplace, if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, you're going to run across people who I call Negative Nancy, Mike, the micromanager, Jill, the office gossiper, and Paul, the passive aggressive person. And so it's important that you understand their behaviors. Why? Understanding their behavior patterns and developing strategies to deal with them effectively can create a healthier and more productive work environment for you. Why? Because you understand not so much who you're dealing with, but what you're dealing with that is coming through this person, this spirit that's coming through this person, these traits and tendencies that's coming through this person to try to really actually affect you in a negative way. So at the end of the day, it comes down to mental health. And so you have to make sure, I have to make sure that you're not guilty of the very same thing that you accuse others of being, and that's toxic. Again, it's easy to call somebody else toxic. And so now that I've defined what toxicity looks like, the traits and tendencies of a person that's toxic, and let me share something with you. It's not just 1 or 2 of the traits and behaviors that I pointed out. It's like the majority of those, right? And specifically, I wanted to hone in on the narcissism because I hear people call people narcissists, and no, they're not a narcissist. And so that's why I really wanted to explain what a narcissist is, so that you can go, oh yeah, now that's a narcissist. That's not a narcissist. That's just a person overconfident, very zealous. They're just much as they're strong and confident in who they are and who they've been called to be. And it's not, they're not, they may be even a little arrogant, but they're not a narcissist, right? And so my point is, as I close here, there are many ways for each and every one of us to improve or maintain good emotional health. And I think when we don't focus on maintaining our own personal, mental, and emotional health, then we can slide into that lane of being the person that's the negative factor in a relationship, in a workplace, in a ministry, in our family. And so the first thing that we have to do is be aware of our emotions and reactions. Be aware of your emotions and reactions. Let me ask you something. Have you paid attention to the things in your life that makes you sad, frustrated, or angry? I'm going to encourage you right now. Write it down. If you've never written it down, write down what makes you sad, what gets you frustrated or angry, and then purpose to address those things or change those things. And I'm here to help you with that as a coach, a transformational coach. The other thing that is important that we do is express your feelings in an appropriate way. Listen to me. You don't have to allow anger and frustration to rule you. Let me share something with you. It seems like the older I get, there's certain things that, I've coined it as I'm not able to tolerate anymore. There was things I could tolerate 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. Today, I can't tolerate certain things, certain traits and behaviors that people display. And so I found it causing me to get frustrated. And then voicing that frustration. So now that person experiences a frustrated Anthony McFarland because I'm frustrated with your foolishness or, your inability to function the way that I know that you can. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But I think it's important that you let the people closest to you know when something is bothering you. Again, this comes down to communication. It's important. And if you'd like to hear, I have a teaching that I did in Bible college on communication. If you'd like to hear a podcast on communication, I'd love to do that. And I think that's something that I'll really consider doing. But you have to communicate with the people that you do life with or work with what doesn't work for you. Does that make sense? Here's what you have to understand. Keeping and holding on to feelings of sadness or anger inside of you, that adds stress, man. And if you can only carry so much stress around because stress creates pressure. And then you've heard this saying, pressure busts pipes. So it can cause you problems. It can cause problems in your health, problems in your relationships. That's why a lot of people entrepreneurs, executives, when they come home from being on the grind, working in the workplace, right? They come home and they spew out all that frustration on their spouse, on their children. And let me share something with you. It makes it hard for people to do life with you. So you have to learn how to communicate how you feel. Again, whether that's in relationships, at work or school, learn how to communicate and let people know where you're at. Let people know what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Here's another big one that people don't really put into play, and that is thinking before you act. Notice I didn't say thinking before you speak. I said thinking before you act. See, most of us react and we don't respond. And so that is a discipline. That is something that, listen to me, it requires a shift in your mindset, your thinking, your views, your approach to handling situations and circumstances that are unbecoming. I can say it like that. See, emotions can be powerful. So you have to give your time, especially if you're an emotionally wired person. Share some with you. If you're emotionally high strung, I know some people like that. Like, oh boy, give yourself time to think and be calm before you say or do something you might regret. I tell parents all the time, listen to me. You never want to correct your children in anger. You never want to spank your children in anger. One of the things my mom would do, we knew we were in trouble. She'd come home and we think she's acting like, now she's already let us know, okay, you got one coming, right? But I noticed what she would do is she would just wait and let time go by. And me and my brother, we would think, oh, mom's forgot. She's cool. Thank you, Jesus. And then when we're preparing for bed, can anybody relate to this story? When we're preparing for bed, all of a sudden, here she comes. And guess what's in her hand? A belt. And then she deals with it. So she never dealt with us out of anger and frustration. Why? Because I'm going to share something with you. Just as you can break a child's spirit, you can break a friend's spirit, your partner's spirit, your spouse's spirit. Why? Because you don't know how to think before you act, because you have not gotten control over your emotions. Again, new techniques and skill sets so that you can develop healthier relationships. There first has to be a better you before there can be a better us. But you have to, oftentimes we want our spouses, we want our bosses, we want the people that we work with to be a better person, but we're not, in fact, a better person. What am I saying to you? You have to learn how to manage stress. On a scale from 1 to 10, be honest with yourself. How good are you at handling stress? I'll say that again. How good are you at handling stress, managing stress? You have to come up with a plan on changing situations and circumstances that cause you stress before, listen to me, you let it consume you. So you have to learn how to relax, take a deep breath. You've heard all these things, count to 21, count to 100. You've heard things like that, right? What do you need to do? What strategy do you need to come up with to deal with stress? Not prevent it, because it's going to happen. I could sit here and sell you on, book a session with me, and I'm going to show you how not to ever experience stress again. No, it's going to happen as long as you're living, right? But it's what you do with it. It's how you handle the stress. It's how you handle frustration. It's what you do with it as soon as it hits you. Does this make sense? And so it's important that we strive for balance. Balance is so necessary. So you have to find a healthy balance between work and play, a healthy balance between work and family. You follow what I'm saying? And that has everything to do with making sure that you're prioritizing your life in such a way. Listen to me, you're managing your life in such a way. And I normally do this pie grid where we identify every aspect of your life. And then we look at what are the pieces and slices that are taking up the majority of your life, and then what you need to do to bring some balance to that. You've seen a pie cut evenly, right? That you can cut a pie in two slices and give you 4 pieces, or you can cut it in 4 slices and it give you 8 pieces, right? So it's finding balance. So you have to really strive to come up with balance. And I think this is something that you have to do periodically. It's not a one and done kind of situation. And then that also helps you give the proper attention and care to your physical health. Let me share something with you. If you run your brain and body into the ground, let me share something with you. You won't fulfill your purpose. See, your physical health can affect your emotional health. And most people don't realize that. What you eat every day, your diet, can affect your mental and emotional health. If you don't exercise regularly, let me share something with you. That stress will build up on your body. How often do you go walk? How often do you go work out? Are you following what I'm saying? So you need to pay attention to every aspect of not only what you're putting in this body, what you're putting on this body, and how you're treating this body. Because this body will only be as good as you treat it. It'll only be as good to you as you treat it. And I'm going to say this, and it may ruffle some people's feathers. Listen to me. If you abuse drug and alcohol, this body is going to break down on you sooner or later. So that's why it's important that we connect with others who have our answers and not our problems. Why? We're social creatures. Don't be the man standing on his own island all by himself, beating his chest, and then one day look up and your whole island has collapsed. You need to be connected to people who are positive, who are in a line with the will, way, and order of God, so that it can not only make you better, but also challenge you. You need to be around others and connected to others who will challenge you to be a better version of yourself. Does this make sense to you? So with that, that's it. That's all. I hope you have enjoyed this podcast. I want to hear from you. What were your personal takeaways? What were some of the things that you applied, the principles that you applied to your life as a result of this episode? So I'd love to hear from you. Email me. Go to my website, abetter-u.com, abetter-u.com. Subscribe to the platform for free, and I'll even have a personal gift for you. No catches to it, as well as you can become a member of Platinum Partners. With that being said, God bless you, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Until next time, I'll see you at the top. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to a Better You program with Anthony McFarland. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.